glad you ended with that participatory note, because I sat next to Michael last night, and at one point during the meeting, the question came up about how do you define participation. And in the science group, we had come at one point to kind of a realization that perhaps one of the biggest barriers about changing the business model taking place inside the classroom is this notion about the amount of participation that's available in a formal setting versus an informal setting, and how that's negotiated in these new environments. And this morning I'm reminded of a story that Tom Carroll told. At the early days of the TICGs, these were the first 8 or 9 grants before there was the E-rate, before there was the Challenge Grant State Program. There was this interagency group. And I remember, Tom, you got up and said that you were an anthropologist, and you told a story that has stuck with me for a really long time, that in the era of moving from steamships to new kinds of engines, that there was a period of time where there would be wooden ships with metal on the side, still having some steam engines and some sails, and that there was this sort of weird hybrid stage that the technology went through for a while, and that it took a long time, a lot of experimentation, a lot of odd ducks that were in the water for a while. The bottom line of the story that really was the surprise is, in the end, it wasn't just that a new form of engine and steel-hulled ships had been created, but aviation came along. The whole game changed entirely. Transportation itself across the oceans moved from entirely, and I think we haven't quite seen the edge of that kind of change, although the indicators that you were giving us this morning about the pressures on schools may eventually get us there. My interest, and I was very pleased to be a part of the science group, in thinking about informal methods, is that we know the kids spend a lot more hours in the informal world than they do in the formal classroom. So not only do we need to punch the wall out so that teachers can go out and grab that stuff and bring it in, but we have to learn to leverage all that time that the kids actually have that's outside of time. So before handing it over, just one last thing is that maybe from your work, or it could be from the Pew report, that about 70% of kids say that they have a lot of access. They use their email and phone, their mobile devices and stuff at home. That 70% of them say they use them for learning purposes, but their teachers won't let them use those in school. I just think there's a big aha for us. We have some big issues to get over before we can really see a full flow between informal systems and formal systems on behalf of kids.
Thanks, David. I'm incented to be very brief. I'm going to report in the informal learning group that we're about to meet with Tom Carroll. He's got an appointment, so my committee members will be quite angry if I take much time. Our group will not speak to the wisdom of groups, but we can say a little bit about the inverse relationship between group productivity and size. We had a very long, wide-ranging discussion as a whole group about what informal learning means, informal learning versus out-of-school learning. To parallel what Tom talked about this morning, much of what is going to shape education today is out of the control of educators, and we have to recognize that. So in many ways, what NTLS is about these past couple of days, attempting to connect formal and informal learning, serves as a theme that we really have to address at the front and consider. So we broke into task forces that are going to, among many things that we want as outcomes today, and I've been assured that each of the committees will be able to do this, publish papers, do proceedings at conferences, write a white paper. But we looked at issues related to the research on informal learning, developing resources, making them available, coming up with models and exemplars that teachers can follow, and addressing the issue of barriers. What are the limitations and barriers? John mentioned one. I mean, we all share these wonderful videos, this great media that kids produce. Most of the emergent media today are produced by today's youth, and yet those very youth cannot access their production while in the classroom. So there certainly are lessons that we can learn from what's happening outside of the classroom. And as Tom has indicated, that's going to shape the future of education, and we really need to consider that. So the 4 subcommittees, do I have them right? Did I leave out a subcommittee? Anybody? My group? We're going to report out along the lines that I described a moment ago, the dissemination of this information. Thank you. Len, anything else, or we break out?
We just have we have, yeah, there's Jan. Now, there's one last thing that we want to report back out in terms of some product of last year's NTLS. We had a group of 3 editors. Lynn, do you want to come on up? Lynn Bell, Ann Thompson, and Lynn Schrum. Last year, you guys said what we're lacking is a survey of the research in the field. And it was proposed that we put together a research monograph. The 3 of them have been working very hard. And in your packet, you have, well, let me hand the microphone down to Jill.
Yeah, you'll see a copy of the book cover. Actually, I think we started on this 2 years ago when one of the themes of NTLC was research on student learning with technology. And so we wanted to come up with a publication that was facilitative of good research on this topic and also paying attention to how the research might be different by content area. So this book is due out in spring. We just got the page proofs last week, so we're excited about getting this project wrapped up. But it's a good example of the kind of collaborations that happen with the Coalition. And before this, we did the digital images book and the digital video books in the works.
So hopefully we have a